everybody. I hope you're having an amazing day, or at least an interesting one. So today I'm going to be making the third part of my townhome series. This is going to be the photographer's home. I haven't finished all the townhomes yet, and so you can't really download this build yet, but when I'm done with all of them, then you can download them off the gallery. My ID is Life Interesting, and the video is called Creative Townhomes if you're interested in this build. For the first townhome, I went for a very dark, rustic style, and so this one I wanted to go for more of like a Scandinavian or like IKEA kind of style, just to kind of be in contrast to it. So I ended up using a lot of like pastel colors, light blues, light pinks, and usually I associate pastels with like girly or feminine items. And so while I was making this build, I was trying to decide who I would imagine would live in this townhome. And so the story I created was that there was these two sisters, and the older sister and the younger sister. And the older sister, when she was like a teenager, she worked in photography, and it eventually blew up around sophomore and freshman year. And so she was able to afford college, which was really good because her family couldn't really afford it before. But she can use her money from photography to go to college and kind of reach for her dreams. So she continued doing photography and like posting on her website and getting a lot of great feedback. And people really liked the photography, especially through college. And then she graduated college and moved into this townhome, which I imagine to be fairly expensive. So I don't know how realistic the story is, may I add, but I think that it's a really good townhome, and so she really wanted to live here. Since she had such a nice place, her parents wanted to take advantage of it. And so they asked her if she can take care of her little sister since, their funds aren't that high and they would just really appreciate the help. But she ended up doing it anyway because she loves her younger sister and she wants the best life for her. And so right now she's trying to be able to help her sister afford college, and she kind of uses that kind of power a little bit, of her helping her younger sister. And so she's just like, oh, well, you can't complain about things that I do, like bringing guys over and having parties, because I'm helping you with this huge thing in your life. And so I imagine they have a lot of conflict in that area because when you're kind of like restricted into like, oh, I can't tell this person this because of these reasons, it can kind of create a lot of tension. And so I imagine that's kind of what's in the house. Like she has a lot of, the older sister has a lot of like boyfriends that go in and out of the house that the sister doesn't like or doesn't think are good, and she's like, well, I'm helping you, so you can't say anything about it, so like stop bugging me. And I feel like that would create a lot of tension. And even though they love each other and they're sisters and they appreciate each other's help, I feel like the older sister is still like, you're my younger sister, I'm not your parent, but I am responsible for you, so you're going to follow my rules no matter how kind of odd they are. So that's a little story I created just while I was making this build. Most of my builds I create like little stories that I kind of like to add to the household or to the building, because I like that kind of like little minor story details. Like for this, I put a lot of like books and desks and like laptops and homework everywhere because the sister's still in school, and imagine she wants her younger sister to be a very like good student, and so she kind of makes the younger sister like do more work than she normally would because of that reason. And I really like the interior of this build. It turned out very kind of light and pretty, very like IKEA kind of style, and I think it turned out really nice. I don't know how a sister can be able to afford all of this, but I don't know. I don't know how much it actually blew up. Like maybe she's actually really famous, and you could add that in the Sims 4 gameplay if you like the story. But of course, you don't have to have the story if you want to play in this household. You can completely just play it with your own household if you're interested in it. I also added two pet bowls by the front door because even though I don't think they have two pets, I like to pretend that like one's like a food bowl and one's a water bowl, even though there's not technically a water bowl in The Sims 4. I imagine they'd have like a little poodle or like a pug or some kind of like small dog, just because I didn't put a litter box in this house. But in your gameplay, if you're interested in downloading this build, there's a lot of room for adding a litter box if you do want a cat. Actually, I kind of prefer getting cats in The Sims 4 just because they're a lot less maintenance than dogs. Dogs like complain for walks, and they notice to get sick more often. They're less likely to like run away. I mean, these are just like things that I've noticed from my gameplay. It's not like statistically proven or anything. I know that at least right now, if I were to have a dog, I definitely want it to be like a big dog. Just because the dog I have right now is really small. She's a terrier. I mean, actually, all my animals are like sleeping behind me right now, so I guess I'll talk about them in this video since I like to have like some sort of subject, and it's just easier for me to talk about since I'm new to this thing. So for my 10th birthday, I really, really wanted a dog. We only had cats before then, and I talk about them in another video because they're also a handful, believe me. And so I had a couple characteristics that I really wanted, especially as like a 10-year-old, like just weird things that I knew I really wanted as a pet. I wanted it to have floppy ears, a tail, I wanted it to be a puppy, and I wanted it to be small. My original idea was I wanted to get like a really tiny like Chihuahua Yorkie type dog, because I wanted to put it in my purse. I don't know why that was such like a thing that I wanted, but my dad said that he refused to walk a dog that small because he doesn't like the way it looks, I guess. I don't know what he was talking about. So I couldn't have a dog that size. And so my mom looked online and she tried to research shelters because we couldn't really afford, or we weren't even going to, even if we could afford it, to get like a purebred dog. My parents were already on board with getting a dog, or at least another animal, because we already had like an older cat that, we knew was going to be there for very long anymore. And so to handle his loss better, for like us being like, 10 and like 12, she thought that it would be a good idea, or both my dad and my mom thought that it would be a good idea to, get another pet just so that the loss was easier to handle. After researching several dogs, she wanted us to kind of meet some in real life that she thought would be really good for me. And so we visited our shelter, and I saw two dogs that I really wanted. One was named Minnie, and one was a dog named Baxter. Baxter was a very like hyper. He was white and had like floppy ears and everything that I wanted, and he had like brown spots all over him. But he was like a very hyper dog, and I knew that I wouldn't really want a hyper dog. And the way the shelter works is that you can kind of like get first call seeing the dog, and the dog already had someone that wanted to see him, and if you see the dog, you have first, I guess, like first dibs, I guess, to buy it. And I didn't really want to risk it, and so I wanted to meet the other dog, which was Minnie. And Minnie, she's like a white terrier, and she has black dots all over her. She's growing a little bit now, but it's actually really cute. But before, she just had like a black face and a black spot on her back, and she was just spotted. She also behaved really well. Like, she followed a lot of like the easy commands. Like, when I like patted the seat next to me, she jumped up immediately. And I think she was really trying to like show off her skills, because when we took her home, she did not do any of those things. Let me just tell you, she did not obey at all, and she still kind of doesn't. While I was at the shelter trying to decide if I wanted Minnie or Baxter, also Minnie didn't have someone that wanted to see her, and so, but she's also a puppy, and so it's not like I can come back the other day and look at her, because puppies go really fast in shelters. My brother looked at cats because he's a cat person, and so he found this big cat, and his name was Big Papa. And my dad didn't like his name, I didn't really like his name, but my brother liked his name, so we kept it, and he immediately fell in love with him. And so we eventually took Minnie, and we took Big Papa, which we just call him Papa because we don't like the name. My dad doesn't like the name because it's like a rapper that I don't know if he doesn't like him or he just didn't like the name, I guess. But I didn't like it because it's just a weird name for a cat, in my opinion. But I don't know, we ended up taking both of them home, and they got along with our older cat, and everything was fine for a couple years. My mom wanted to try to get a emotional support dog. And so we tried to do that, but it really wasn't working that well. None of us were really kind of connecting to the dog. And we returned to the shelter. I mean, somebody else found him, and, they're completely, fine to do that. And he's living probably a really happy life now. But we just couldn't provide that for him, and that's okay. But after we returned him, since we returned him within the policy days, we got the money back. And I wanted to get another pet with that money because it was like $200, and that's quite a bit of money, and we didn't want to just buy like dog food and things like that. And so my mom agreed, and everyone else in the family agreed, and we went to the shelter and we got two Siamese kittens, and they're both sisters. I don't know what their original names were. I asked my mom, and she said that there was Lucy and Ethel, and it was from the TV show I Love Lucy. And we liked the name Lucy, but we weren't the biggest fan of the name Ethel, just because it sounded really old, and there was like kittens, and so we didn't want to give them a super old name. And none of us really watched the show, so we had no connection to it. But we had a lot of options for like twin sisters, I guess. And so we were trying to think of like what we wanted for the name, right? Since we were going to replace them. We thought of Cy and Am, which is from the movie Lady and the Tramp. We thought of Sam and Patty, which is from a show, an anime called, I think it's called Soul Eater. Yeah, it was Soul Eater. And there's those two girls in the show that me and my father really liked watching at that time. But we didn't want them to be named after someone in our family, and someone in our family was already named Patty. And so we were still trying to figure out the names, but since they were my cats, they were in my room, I had to like clean up after them because we wanted to wait a little bit until they were older to introduce them and let them like live free reign with the house and with like my dog and everything. And so they just kind of were in my room, and they look very similar when they were kittens. Like, they look a lot different now, but when they were kittens, they looked very similar. And so I had to figure out a name for them because I couldn't just say the cats. Both of them have these really big, beautiful blue eyes, but one of them, her eyes are like this really crystal, like kind of like candy rock color. And so I called her Blue just because she had these like really gorgeous like diamond looking eyes. And the other one, she kind of moved like a lion, like she pranced around like a lion, and she just kind of had that form. And so I eventually called her Nala from The Lion King. I thought that these were just going to be like, just like tester names, just so that I can call them something. We eventually really liked them, and we kept them. So now I have 3 cats and 1 dog, a dog named Minnie, Big Papa, Blue, and Nala, and I love them with all my heart. They're so sweet. They're like the Siamese kittens or cats are really mischievous. They like to bite cords and are just little brats, but we love them anyway. And so yeah, those are my pets right now. I'll tell more stories probably later, but we're coming close to the end of the video, so I guess we'll talk about the rooms upstairs. The room in the back of the house I made very like formal and white. There's like an open closet, and I imagine she likes fashion and makeup since I put those kind of things all over the house. And then this room I made the younger sisters, and so it's very girly and feminine. I don't know, I really like the kind of pastel colors, like the color of the vanity right now is so gorgeous. I added these like kind of couches along the window because I always like the way it looks in like Disney movies and stuff like that. And yeah, I really like the end of this build. It turned out really nice and really pretty. I haven't worked with pastel colors in a while before I did this build. I'm working all with like darker colors, and I just kind of wanted to switch things up. There's so many different colors you can work with in interior design, and I need to just stop working with like black and brown and red and work with like pastel colors and whites and tans and creams. And I really enjoyed making this build. It was a nice refresh, and even though this room is like a really weird shape and the house is pretty similar to all the other ones, I think this is probably my favorite so far out of the 2, just because And I really like pastel colors. I just think they turned out really well. I do love drawing and everything, but I usually never draw in pastels. I always draw like bold colors. And so it's just kind of a good change, I guess. But I think a part of that reason is because I like working with alcohol markers. I use Ohuhu markers because Copics are really expensive and I'm not like a pro yet, and so they're just really fun to work with. And there's not a lot of pastel colors in Ohuhu. A lot of them are really bright. I'm sure a lot of people would say that Ohuhu markers are ripoffs of Copic markers, and I don't really like supporting like knockoff brands either, but sometimes you just gotta do what you want to do. And yeah, I'm trying to get into digital artwork, but it's kind of difficult just to kind of like start it all over again and learn all these different things you can do. But I don't know, maybe you guys will see me improve on that if you guys are interested in seeing me do those things on my channel. So I added some photos along the wall since she is a photographer, and I added like lamps, and now we're going to go to the screenshot. So I hope you're all having an amazing day. I hope you guys all enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe if you want to see the other parts of my series. And I hope you enjoy the screenshots. Bye!